Okay, so this is just another video that I want to do, using again the anime Vinland Saga as a backdrop. And the main talking point is just going to be the difference between, having a ruling class mentality and a slave mind. And I think one of the main things that separate persons who are rulers and people who are not is one being able to make decisions without letting your emotions cloud you and being calculated to a degree, meaning what you're not a reactor, you're proactive. You create scenarios around you as opposed to just reacting to whatever goes in front of you. But we're just going to start with this short portion in this episode, and then I'll get the main point in a different episode. Oh yeah, so let me add some context. So this right here is a flashback scene of the main character Thorfinn. For those of you brothers who haven't watched the series, the main character Thorfinn, his father was killed uh, by Askeland, and Askeland is the basically the mercenary that he's working under. So the deal is, as long as Thorfinn does what Askeland says, as a mercenary, he goes out and fight battles. He kills Askeland's enemy. Every once in a while, he gets a chance to fight him in a duel and kill him to reclaim his father's honor. Of course, every time he tries to fight him, he gets his ass kicked. So, basically, it's a carrot on a string. As long as you keep doing what I say, you'll have the opportunity to kill me, but you're never going to be able to do it.
本当の戦士には剣など
Oh yeah, and that girl right there, that's a slave girl. Oh yeah, and just to add more context, the reason why his arm's broken, he just got his ass kicked in a duel again.
オルム様があなたに食事を持ってけって。ねえ、君も奴隷なの？
ああ？
だってそんなとこで食べてるし。
俺は戦士だ。あんたと違って飯を食う場所を自由に選べる。
That's another thing too. Self-awareness is key because this dude really doesn't understand it, but he's still a slave. He thinks he's free because he's allowed to, go out and battle and do what he wants. But at the end of the day, he's being fully and thoroughly controlled with that. Like I said earlier, that carrot on the stick with the mercenary leader Askan is like, hey man, as long as you do what I say, you'll have an opportunity to kill me. And so far, he hasn't been successful. By the way, I believe at this point in the story, he's around 17. He's been working for him since he was like 4 years old. So he's been working for this dude for a long time now.
そうなの？でもなんだか君、私と同じって感じがするから。
奴隷の気持ちなんざ知るか。俺があんただったらゴルムを殺して逃げる。追っても全員殺す。
Okay, so the question is then, Thorfinn, why haven't you done that yet? Because supposedly he hates this man so much for killing his father, but instead of just killing him and dipping, he's willing to do some type of duel for his father's honor. So it just shows you that right now he's really lacking self-awareness because of his rage and his anger. But that's a whole other topic.
そんな殺すなんて。
なら一生奴隷でいればいい。あんたの勝手だ。
逃げて、どこまでも逃げて、海の彼方まで逃げ切ったら、そこには何があるのかしら。きっと何もないわね。どこまで行ってもここと同じ戦と奴隷商人がいるだけ。
遥か西、海の向こうにフィンランドという名の。
Okay, yeah, I'll probably stop here, at least in this episode, and get to the other scene because right now he's just going to expand on quote unquote Vinland, which is the new world, and you know how it's a land flowing with wine and honey and grain. But that's not the main point of the video. So let's get to another scene. Okay, so at this point, this is a lot further in the series, as you can see. Well, let it play a little bit. That dead body right here, that's was one of the close friends of Askelin, Askelin being the main mercenary character. So right now, he's very pissed off, and a lot of the subtleties in the games that he plays with Thorfinn, the mask comes off. He don't play no games with this dude in this fight. Go back for a second. Is it just me, or this dude kind of looks like a Caucasian version of the actual images of King James? It just might just be me. I just noticed that.
どうしたトロフィー。来いよ。振りが強くなる前に終わらせて。
Yeah, so before I get into the fight again, this dude is very pissed off. Normally, if you've watched the series in the earlier fights, he kind of just plays games and toys around, but this not. He just fucks him up this fight.
しょうがねえな。俺、攻めやすくなったろ。来い、坊主。な？まだわかんねえのか。なんでこうなるのか。
And again, the reason why he always gets his ass kicked is, like I said, is the difference between facing a man with a ruling class mentality and a slave mind. You're always going to lose that fight because he's using his brain. You reacting based on your emotions, and that's how this character Thorfinn is. Basically, when it comes to just specifically him, because for those of you who've watched the series, he's actually a very great fighter, but because of Askelin, this character essentially has a mental hold on him. He always just regresses to a angry child every time they fight, so he never wins.
さっきの訂正、勝負になってねえやこりゃ。トルフィンのやつ。
Yeah, and let me elaborate. The main reason why they're at odds with each other is because this dude Askelin killed his father. So because he wanted revenge so bad, he ended up joining their mercenary gang, and every opportunity he gets, they have a duel like this. Normally, he doesn't get his ass kicked this bad, but this time, Askelin doesn't care anymore.
癖から何からアーシャラッドに見抜かれてら。この二人相当やってんな。決闘の理由は？
知らぬ。聞いていない。
たく、成長のねえガキだ。トルケルに勝って調子に乗ったが。いい加減うんざりするぜ。
やめよ、そこまでだ。
片手でこの俺に勝てると思ったか。まったく、今日はクソ気分のいい日だぜ。
やめろ。もうよせ。気絶している。そなたの勝ちだ。
ああ、本当に止めやがんの。
トルフィン、おい、
トルフィン。わかるか。決闘はもう終わったぞ。
See, when you see this scene and you relate it earlier to how Thorfinn was chastising the slave girl, saying, "Oh, you should just kill him and be done with it." Well, that's where self-awareness is key, because at the end of the day, you could have killed Askelin in his sleep years ago, but year after year, day after day, he's always just wanted to do this damn fight. It just shows that he's not that serious when it comes to accomplishing his goals. But Askelin's going to scold him on that in a few minutes.
そなたの負けだ。妖精、もう終わりだ。
てめえ！
気を失ったのだ。すでにとどめを刺されている。右腕が治ってからまたやり直せ。
治っても同じですよ。怪我のせいじゃねえ。そのバカはバカだから負ける。普段はちった考えて戦うようになってきちゃいるが、いっぺん頭に血が上ったら全部台無しだ。首筋を狙ってるのが目線で丸分かりなんだよ。
Yep, that's where that rage and that hatred comes in. Like I said earlier, he's a great fighter, but when it comes to just fighting him, because Askelin has somewhat of a mental hold over him, he can't think clearly. And that just shows you what happens when you have a rage or some type of strong emotion. It clouds your judgment. It doesn't even apply to just issues when it comes to revenge, when it comes to even just making day-to-day decisions. If you allow your emotions to overcome you, you gonna fail. Now again, it's not saying it's wrong to have emotions, because at the end of the day, all emotions is just the best way to describe emotion is just energy in motion. That hence emotion. So that energy that you feel from your emotions, you're supposed to use it as fuel for something productive, constructive. But in Thorfinn's case, and he's just an example of a lot of people, what they do when they feel an emotion, they're the equivalent of somebody who puts gas in their car, and then once they start driving, they are immediately going 125 miles an hour, 170, 160. You don't need to go that fast just because you got a little bit of fuel in the tank. Just because you got fuel, don't mean you gotta be speeding like that. Sometimes it's good to go, 60, 55, even 45, so you can actually view your surroundings. Because when you're going that fast, you're not able to, properly view everything in its perspective.
すぐにブチ切れてでけえ声出して獲物振り回すのはバカの戦だ。まったくどいつもこいつも美しさのかけらもありゃしねえ。ビョルンの言う通りさ。俺は戦士ってのは大嫌いだ。ノルド戦士、バイキングは特にな。初めて殺した相手もノルド戦士だった。美しくない男だったぜ。
So this is when he gets into his backstory, and for those of you who don't know, Askelin is a Welshman, and again, the original Welshmen were so called black men. For those of you who've not watched the series that I did on King James, King James was descended by the original, Scoto-Irish, Welsh settlers, aka the Celtics. The Celtics, they came from a race of people that originally lived in the Iberian Peninsula. They were a mixture of the Canaanites and the Israelites of the Bibles, conventionally known in history as the Phoenicians. Now, for those who've done any research on the Phoenicians, yes, they were so-called people of color. What they did, they settled in that Iberian Peninsula, and then over time they moved into the British Isles. So yeah, in real life, he would have been a so-called black man.
俺の親父だ。小僧、工学のために教えてやろう。憎い相手の殺し方をな。
Yep, and this is really, he's going to give him that serpentine wisdom. Because again, for those of you who read the scriptures, sometimes you got to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. Now, we understand it according to scriptures, vengeance is the Lord, so we're not supposed to take revenge like that. But it's always important to be wise in terms of anything that you want to accomplish. But he's just going to go into his story and try to give him some edification.
よいしょい。ガタ来てんな。火事場や馬屋の下働きで。何でも物心つく頃には火事場や馬屋の下働きだった。体はいつも灰やすすや馬のクソやらで白かったり黒かったりでな。ついたあだ名がアシェラッド。灰まみれって意味だ。
オーラフ様が帰っていらしたぞ。また大勝利だったよ。
So that man Olaf that you're going to see, that is going to be Askelin's actual father. Is going to get into this a little bit later, but he's a bastard. So.
親父はユトランドの豪族だった。酒と女と殺しが好きな、まあどこにでもいるようなバイキングだ。俺みたいなガキをあちこちの女に産ませてたらしいが、名を与えたのは本妻の産んだ年長の子供たちだけだった。
I should have mentioned it earlier when he mentioned Jutland was just part of northern Denmark. So again, he would have been a Danish man.
それ以外のガキなんざ顔も覚えちゃいなかっただろうぜ。おふくろは若い頃、親父のお気に入りの奴隷だったそうだが、病を得てからは犬と同じ扱いだった。生きることが辛いのは俺にとっちゃ当たり前のことだったが、どうやらおふくろは違ったようだ。おふくろはよく先祖の英雄アルトリウスの話をした。
When he's talking about Arturius, he's talking about King Arthur of legend. But yeah, let me just skip a little bit forward. Y'all don't need the whole backstory, just the main point. Okay, so this scene right here, this about to be a scene of combat. Essentially, the mother has reunited with the father who abandoned her, and the man is about to kill her. And during this scene, this is when Askelin reaches an epiphany.
英雄アルトリウスと勘違いしたらしい。一瞬で悟った。今この時アルトリウスがおふくろを助けに来ないのなら、そんなものは永遠に来ないのだと。わかるか若造ども。誰かがやらねばならん。英雄でも神でもね、誰かがな。
Exactly, and that applies especially in the time period that we're in, because we know a lot of us brothers who do believe in the Most High. We understand that everything's controlled by Him at the end of the day, but He's left our fate. What happens to us in our hands. We already know that it's predestination involved, that everything's been predetermined, but that's something that is far above us. When it comes to just us being on the earth, nobody else can save us or improve our life station but ourselves. It's up to us to do what we need to do to be successful in whatever we put our mind to. And that's one of the main lessons that Askelin is trying to show them, that at the end of the day, he had a goal in mind and he had to achieve it by any means possible. And again, as long as you're not breaking any laws of the scriptures or any laws in the country that you live, all bets are off. You do what you need to do.
不思議なもんだ。初めて使ったのに剣は俺の手によく馴染んだ。どう振ればいいのか分かっていた。俺の体に目の前のクソ野郎の血が流れている証拠だと思った。情けねえ話さ。涙が出るぜ。 お前、その女の子か。わしの子か。
そうです。
見込みがある。今日から館に進め。さすがに11歳のガキにやれる相手とは思ってなかった。まずは親父の目に留まること。成功だ。
This is another key difference between Askelin and Thorfinn. Unfortunately for Thorfinn, when his father had passed away, he was only, I believe, around 4 years old. So by the time when he joined that mercenary band, he really that event of his father dying, it really stunted his growth. It made him unable to develop that ruling class mentality, as opposed to Askelin, who was around 11. But even still, you can just tell that their natures were innately different because he was more cold and calculating, as we're going to see.
館では行儀よくしていたよ。武術や馬術の鍛錬を怠らなかった。腹違いの兄貴たちともうまくやってた。やるな、始まったんだな。いつも親父を立てるように気を使ってね。奴隷暮らしから救ってくれた恩を決して忘れない忠実な息子だった。じきに周りも身内もすっかり俺を親父の子として受け入れるようになった。この作業に2年をかけたぜ。狙いは2つ。親父の油断と遺産の相続権だ。お前らにも見せてやりたかったよ。親父のあのなぜって面。
Yep, I mean that sounds cold, but that's the heart of the serpent. Sometimes, man, you gotta have a little bit of skullduggery to accomplish your goals. And honestly, the character of Askelin kind of reminds me to a degree, for those of you brothers who've read the continuation of the book of Esther, how Mordecai had the dream with him and Haman being two dragons. And why were they dragons? Because they were serpentine. Not only did they have wisdom, they knew what to do to accomplish their goals. They knew what pieces to use and how to conduct themselves to get what they want. And that's also an important key when it comes to having wisdom. Again, in the scriptures, it tells you that there's a time and a place for everything in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. And also, again, you're supposed to be harmless as a dove, but wise as a serpent. So that there are times where you have to seem harmless to the people around you, but in the back of your mind, you have to, have a game plan. Not saying it has to be something extreme as this, as killing somebody, because, the time period we are in, that's you go to jail for doing shit like that. But this is an example of using wisdom and shrewdness to get what you want.
使ったのは兄貴の剣だ。親父と仲の悪い奴から選んで盗んだ。他の兄貴たちは犯人と思い込んで、そいつをリンチにかけちまえんの。全く単純な奴らだぜ。バカで不潔で、てめえの欲望以外に何もねえクソどもさ。ああいう美しくねえ奴らがそこら中から湧いて出てきて幅を利かせやがる。いくらぶち殺してもキリがねえ。アルトリウスでもラグナロクでも最後の審判でも何でもいいからよ。マジに来るなら急いでもらいたいもんだぜ。まあそん時は俺も生きちゃいられねえだろうがな。あ、 長くなったな。要するにだ、ドルフィン。10年以上かけて俺一人倒せないお前は、ボンクラだって話さ。
Again, this entire scene, the reason why I had to let him go to talk a little bit, it just shows you that another thing is self-awareness is key. Like when we watched that scene earlier with the slave girl, how she mentioned to him, "You look like a slave," and he said, "I'm not a slave." If he had realized his condition, he would have approached things differently. If he understood that he was essentially a slave, a mercenary, he would have come up with an idea to actually get himself out of that condition. But because he already thought he was free, he just kept continuing doing the same thing over and over and over again. And also on the side, Askelin had also become somewhat of a father figure to Thorfinn. That's why he wanted to beat him in a duel as opposed to using whatever means necessary to take him out. It's more for him, it was more of him trying to beat a father figure, straight up, as opposed to, conquer him through subtlety.
うるせえ。俺は何があってもてめえを殺す。絶対殺してやる。
The man still doesn't get it. He's trying to tell him, man, if you wanted to kill me, you gotta be subtle about it. You gotta be conniving. You gotta scheme and plan. And even the fact that Askelin went out of his way to tell him his whole life story, that shows you that he's growing fond for the kid. He actually likes him to a certain degree. So if Thorfinn were to play his cards right, he could get what he wanted. But unfortunately, because due to his emotion and his rage and a lot of his honestly unresolved childhood trauma, he can't get what he wants out of life. And it's actually funny for those of you brothers who read later on in the series. In order to like have a renewed mind state, he has to go through a period of physical slavery. So right now he's a mental slave, and then after he goes through a period of physical slavery, that's when he's able to reinvent himself.
たく、言ってるそばからそれかよ。犬めてえに餌に釣られて駆け回りやがって。おめえの働きにはマジで頭が下がるよ。茶番みてえな決闘に付き合ってやるだけで、あのトルケルにまでホイホイ挑んでいくんだもんな。便利なガキだよ、お前は。
Yep. See, all pretenses are basically he's letting you know you've been a good servant all these years. Thank you for doing whatever I say. And that's why it's important to have a focused mindset as opposed to emotional and understand when you're being used. Because for him, he was so clouded by his rage, he didn't understand that he's been working for this dude for 10 years and he's been giving him what he wants, but he hasn't gotten what he wanted yet. So then what's the point of keep doing this? I gotta try something new.
まったく、トールズにも感謝しねえとな。
For those of you who don't know, Thor's is Thorfinn's father, the one that he killed.
待て。
もうよせ。
うるせえ。黙れ。
今は傷を癒せ。
血やがれ。
Yeah, but I'm gonna stop right there. Honestly, this right here is one of my favorite episodes, and it just delves into the mindset of somebody who has a ruling class or a serpent like mindset. Of course, in this time period, we're not supposed to be plotting how to kill somebody that we hate or anything along those lines, but just the practical aspect of having a goal and being able to achieve that goal through subtlety. That's important when it comes to this life, because again, like I read in or like I mentioned in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, there's a time for everything: a time for war, a time for peace, a time to kill, a time to grow. So that's just it's more or less explaining the circle of life. But when it comes to applying that to your life, you always have to understand that there's a time and a place for everything. You always have to basically take the time to think and rationalize your action before you make a movement, as opposed to letting your emotions control you. But yeah, that's it for this video, brothers. Peace.